What does RTIC do for me?
Montgomery County 911, what's the address of the emergency?
Welcome to another episode of Voices of Service. As you can see, today we have a full house, or a full couch. But we are joined by our captain of our Special Operations Division, Captain Picerno, Lieutenant Dzenkowski of the 3rd District, and 2 of our retired officers, Scott Feldman and Todd Muollo of our RTIC.
RTIC. I've got a cooler called RTIC, but that's not what you guys are.
No.
So Cassandra and I have to yell at everyone because, and yell at each other because we keep using acronyms, right? So RTIC, RTIC, is actually the
Real-Time Intelligence Center.
Real-Time Intelligence Center, and you guys used to be
The VCIC.
VCIC, which doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well.
No, RTIC is.
RTIC is much better. It's very cool.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Oh, look at that. I got it. All right, there you go. So I was on the way in today, and I was thinking, I got all the notes about what we're going to talk about. And some of us here have been in policing for a while, our retired guys. You guys are all young. But, you know, back in the day, I was trying to think of where did this RTIC thing come from? And I'm convinced now it came from the show 24. I'm a huge 24 fan. And I just heard that there's going to be 2 new seasons, but you guys are like Chloe back in the CTU. I love it. Jack Bauer, always out there doing stuff. Our officers out there doing stuff, right? Dealing with stuff in the field, and they need information. They need intelligence. They need to know what to look for so that they can solve these crimes. That's you guys, right?
Yes. We try.
We try. So I'm an officer out on the road, right? And I get dispatched to. I want people to understand like what you guys do. I'm an officer out on the road. I get dispatched to a robbery. I won't name a community. We'll get all kinds of hate mail. I get dispatched to an armed robbery. I get on scene. What does RTIC do for me? What do you guys do? You guys hear the call, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Don't everyone speak at once. I'm going to turn this.
Okay.
This is the problem with having 4 people. Dzenkowski, you're not going to say a damn thing. All right, Feldman.
Right.
Go, robbery.
What we do is Todd and I regularly listen to the radio. We scan all the channels. We have our own CADs, so we look at the calls on the CAD. We also have a system called Live View. I'm not sure what that's called, but I don't like it because it's distracting. It's when the callers call in directly to ECC, but you can. It's very distracting.
Oh, Live 911?
Live 911.
Yeah, that's a great tool. We'll talk about that another time.
I know the drone guys use it quite often.
Absolutely.
But what we'll do is we try to get any intelligence that there might be at a residence or a business. We'll try to look up and see if there's any camera systems that are nearby that we have access to. We have a county camera map locator app, and we'll bring that up. Now Todd and I think, know where most of our cameras are, so we don't use that as often, but we'll bring that up and find out, do we have any Valeris cameras, county cameras in that particular area? Do we have any trailer cameras in that area? Or even MDOT live view cameras. So we'll look for any kind of camera systems, any kind of intelligence. If they have a license plate number, they'll give descriptions. If they happen to know a name, we'll look that name up in eJustice, in links, in other intelligence databases, and try to get any information that's available to us at the time.
I know, sorry to interrupt you, on Friday, on my way home, I was listening to the radio and I heard RTIC, and I don't know if you said, what your call number was, but I heard RTIC and I keyed in because we had just had that conversation, and you immediately offered information to those officers that were there, and you said, I think you were giving a description of the person that they were going to see. And that just information alone allows those officers to be able to maybe respond a different way or to have a better lookout when they get there. And we had talked about that on the phone. Is there additional information that you then give?
We did. We talked about it. And I think what I said is we're a very visual profession. Everything we do, we're observing people. We try to identify people as individuals. So our big thing is pictures. We try to get pictures out of people. And if there's a call for a domestic, for example, we'll run the person who is on the call, who's the suspect, run them through eJustice. A lot of times ECC isn't capable, or they don't get the date of birth or the full information or even the correct spelling. So sometimes it's a challenge, but we'll get as much information on that individual as possible. And if they have, caution codes, for example,
Yeah.
Assaults, police, suicidal, mental, escape risk, all those things, we'll look that up, and we'll also run them through MVA, through meters. We'll try to get a photograph of them. We'll go to links in other databases and get a photograph. Photographs are huge.
Yeah.
That's what we try to get out while they're en route to the call,
Right.
so they have an idea of who they're dealing with before they even get there, and we'll get on the air and say, hey, be aware that this individual has whatever cautions they might have.
Yes.
And so that might prompt them to have more officers go with them to the call, what equipment they might take in with them. If they're suicidal, might bring a medical kit
Right.
with you. If they're known to fight, somebody bring a shield with you. I've brought a shield many times and kept it right at the front door,
Yeah.
just in case you need it. I'd rather have it with me and not need it than need it
Right.
and not have it,
Change
right?
that way that we,
So
that initial
the-
contact.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that. Like I heard, so you heard them. I heard Todd one day. We were going to a domestic, right? Domestic's one of the most volatile situations we can. But I was listening, and they were, and you guys said, I think it was you, Todd. You were like, the subject went back into their apartment and hasn't come back out. Which, we're getting to the scene like 5, 7, 8 minutes after we get a call sometimes. So that's important stuff to know when I'm looking around for people. And then going back to what you were saying, the lookout thing, it was the most frustrating when I was rolling around. You'd get a lookout. You get a lookout for someone that's a subject from an armed robbery. They're wearing a black hoodie and jeans. Well, some of the places we work in, there could be like 7 different people with black hoodies and jeans. And so if getting a picture is a big deal, so it makes it easier for who I stop. But and the picture thing and the video thing, Captain Picerno, we are.
Penn State.
Come on, you got to be quicker than that. But I watch you. You got excited when we were talking about video.
I did.
That's
I
your
did.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Tell me about the video of what we're doing, because I know we're doing some neat stuff now with FUSIS, another acronym. Here's a test. Anyone know what FUSIS?
Well, it more means like fusing together.
Okay.
So it's like not really an acronym. It's more of a double entendre.
Okay.
Right. So
That's a
Double entendre.
It's a big word on it. I got to drink more coffee to get words
So,
like that.
one of the things I think that, to kind of go back, the whole idea of this real-time crime center, real-time intelligence center, it's not a new concept.
Right.
And it's existed for upwards of 30 years. It started in London and expanded to New York City. And
Thanks,
now,
you just blew up my 24 theory.
well, it's good to have that thought because that's what makes you sleep well at night.
It does
that's
make
perfect.
me sleep well at night.
But we're at a point now. Certainly most major cities, if not most medium and larger cities, have some sort of real-time information, real-time intelligence center. So we recognize that, especially as we're facing staffing shortfalls, having the best and most accurate intelligence with officers in the street is the best way to get successful outcomes and to make officers more efficient and more responsive. So, we have already access to a variety of different cameras that the county owns. We have their trailer cameras. We have security cameras. We have Department of Transportation type cameras. We're expanding with some soft target protection cameras. But
What is this soft target
that's what I was
protection?
a
gonna
soft target protection cameras, we received some grant money from the state to increase security at areas that are potential soft terror targets. So places where pedestrians congregate, transit centers, things like that, right?
Okay.
And a lot of those happen to be in areas that also are higher in crime. So we're able to kind of get 2 different angles, and it's all locations we already have cameras. It's just a different angle, different elevation for us to see what's going on. But we also, at times, will have private entities, businesses and religious institutions and things of that nature that will say, hey, here's the login to our camera system, right? Or hey, if you want to come take a look at our cameras, go ahead. Well, we partner with this company called Fusus, which has now been bought by Axon, who makes our body camera and our tasers. And they have a product called Fusus that will let us share private camera streams with law enforcement. And our website is mococonnect.org. And there's a lot of information on that website, but what this allows us to do is private businesses can plug in a device into their camera system, and it actually then will send the stream to us. It's completely voluntary.
That's what I was going to say.
100%,
This
right.
is completely
Just the stream,
voluntary.
we're not recording.
It can record a short period of time, but it's their option. So if
Right,
the business is like, hey, you know what? I'll give you my stream. I don't want you to just record it all. It's fine. Like even then, I generally would ask for like at least an hour, because if a crime happens, we want to be able to go back and see enough.
Yeah.
But if you don't want to give me 3 days, like that's cool. But it's always going to be, as far as my position is, it's always going to be voluntary. There are places in the country that mandate sharing.
But
I don't think
not.
we're not in that space. I don't think we'll ever be in that space. I don't want to be in that space. There are plenty of places who voluntarily want to give us access. And I've talked to tons of businesses. I've only had one that flat out said, no, I'm not interested. Some were like, hey, we're going to look into it some more and do some more research. But I only had one business say, that's not happening.
Right.
So we've had a lot of positive feedback. We're working with about a dozen different places to bring them on board. It also has, as part of the MoCo Connect program, that's kind of the residential camera sharing. And then we also have what's called camera registry, where if you at your house want to say, I live at this address, here's my contact information. If a crime happens nearby, hit me up and I'll look for video.
And this is for private residents.
Private residents, businesses can do it as well if they so choose, but this doesn't give us access to their streams. It just lets us know who has a camera, and then we're able to kind of mass email a neighborhood to say, all right, you registered with MoCo Connect. Can you look at your video overnight to see if you see anything that's unusual?
It's almost like them saying, I want to partner with you.
100%. And when Chief Frank and I used to be, on the street, we've done plenty of neighborhood canvases where you're knocking on doors and you don't know if maybe someone's home, maybe someone's not
Terrible.
home. It's a grind, right?
They think you're what, not a telemarketer. What is the other one?
Solicitor?
Solicitor.
Right.
It's terrible going house to house.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And unless if you're in uniform, maybe you get better response, maybe you don't.
Right.
But at least now it saves you some time. Like the whole concept of real-time crime is making things more efficient.
Right.
And making our responses more efficient, especially when we're down, the officers were down. If we can leverage the technologies we have safeguards in place to protect community rights and community concerns. But at the same time, we have these technologies available, we need to leverage them in an efficient way. And I think that's what these guys have done an amazing job at doing.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of setting up this mesh of technology, resources, personnel, to kind of like watch over what our patrol officers, because patrol is still the backbone, right? And that's the beauty of what you guys are doing, is supporting patrol. But like, you mentioned it, the religious institutions, right? So Montgomery County, there's a grant program where religious institutions can get cameras and so forth, separate from the other grant program Montgomery County has to get cameras. And then we can link them in, mesh them into what we're doing, and we can effectively and quickly pivot to go look at things and get information out to the road. So that's pretty neat. Now, I do have a big question. Why is Al here? He's just sitting over in the corner. Why is Al here?
He's my emotional support lieutenant.
Okay.
No, so I mean, look, this is a team effort, and it doesn't get done without the work of a lot of great people. And I can't give enough credit to Scott and Todd for bringing the retired officer perspective to this program. And I'll go into that more in a minute. But I can't do this alone. Al has been my project deputy director for almost 2 years now, and Al gets a lot of stuff done behind the scenes without a lot of fanfare. So I dragged him up here so he'd get some fanfare.
So you actually do all the work.
I defer to the captain on that.
Hey, you must be on the captain's list. You're very good. No, Al, look, I've had the pleasure of watching you grow up around here, and you've done some great stuff, and I'm glad you're here. We're waiting.
Appreciate it.
What do you think is? I mean, you're a younger officer, not that much younger, but younger. I mean, what do you think of what these guys are doing and what they're bringing to the road?
So the capabilities of this thing are honestly endless as far as where they're getting and how much these two have made this thing grow in the last year.
Right.
Has been insane. Just the two of them have helped on over 2,000 police events this year alone.
Right.
That's the two of them. As far as video, everything else, the more we get access to, the more we can help. The more they can help the road officers,
Right.
especially responding to incidents. They're on top of things basically immediately. The new software suite for Fusus is going to drastically increase their efficiency also.
Good.
They're great at what they're doing now, but they'll be able to pretty much drag on a space on a map and bring up every camera around it when like an incident happens, like the robbery you mentioned.
Right. Yeah, I saw that down at DC Center, and I know we were already there doing stuff like that, but a little bit quieter. So I'm going to go back. What is it, Nick? Probably a year and a half. And so I will say the pivot that we've made on, that's my word today.
It is.
So when this program first started, I'm talking to Cassandra now. When the program first started, we were supposed to fund the analysts that were doing the real-time crime or VCIC with they were contractors, but they were like civilian contractors. And Nick and I must have been in umpteen meetings where he kept giving updates. Yeah, we tried to hire one and they went and worked for someone else, or they didn't pass the background, or this didn't happen. So the program really was slow to get off of the ground.
It was.
And then I don't know where we pivot and how we got lucky, but we found you two, the army of two here, and all of a sudden the thing has flourished, right?
Yeah.
How did we do that?
So it's interesting, and I'll be the first to admit I was wrong. Shocking to you. When we first started this program with ARPA grant money.
I'm always wrong.
I was wrong. ARPA grant money, and we knew, when you have a grant, you can't really hire full-time employees. You got to kind of go the contractor route because you can't guarantee funding in perpetuity. So my thought was, all right, the real-time crime center analysts are entry-level positions into the world of crime analysis.
Yes.
Right? We have a really great crime analysis division that does in-depth look at crime trends and tries to kind of forecast the way crimes are going. And I felt this was a great opportunity to kind of get your foot in the door in that program. And we hired some people, and we hired really, really great people.
Yeah.
And one of them actually now works as a crime analyst in, not for us, but another allied agency. But there was a long training program, just getting up to speed. I'm comfortable with what they were seeing, and it just wasn't quite taking off at the level, by no fault of their own, not taking off the level I was hoping. And that first year, we supported 170 calls for service, which is impressive, but it's I didn't think we were quite where we need to be. And
I think the thing we couldn't that I think has become clear to like people like us now is you can't replicate the experience.
And that's exactly it, for sure.
Right?
Yeah, so at one point we had two analysts working there, and they both told me the same day they were going to go to new jobs. And I was like, I don't know what to do. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's like, Scott Feldman just retired and he's looking for work. So I didn't really know Scott that well, but I called him up and we talked about some things, and he applied. And what became very clear at that point to me was this isn't an entry-level position in a crime analysis. This is a job for a retired officer who still likes to do police work, but is at the point in their career they don't want to be out there chasing down dudes and getting into fights and being out there, but they still want to be the police. They still want to help the community. They still want to solve crime. And brought on Scott, brought on Todd shortly thereafter. They were academy classmates, it's like Al said. It's we're going to have over 10 times the amount of calls supported this year as last year, because they know how to use the radio. They know how to watch a camera. And the one thing that Scott and I always joke about, and I think Scott's been very open about this. First 3 or 4 days in the center, he absolutely hated the job, and he calls me. He's like, hey, look, I'm not a quitter. I'm just telling you this job may not be for me. So I'm like, hey man, look, I'm not going to ask you to do anything you're not comfortable doing. Just, you know.
Well, I'm not a tech guy. So I was really concerned about learning all the camera systems and database systems, because I didn't really have to use them in patrol on the road. Todd's a detective. I was not, so I wasn't used to it. So I was a little overwhelmed that first week with all the learning curve of everything I had to learn. And I wasn't sure I could do it. But yeah, I'm like, I buckled down and finally learned it.
And I told Scott, he's like, and I was driving around, I texted him and I said, hey, look, just the best way I can describe your job to you is put yourself in the shoes of the officer responding to a call. Ask yourself, what would make me do this job, this call, more efficient and safer? And just do that. And the next week he's like, all right, this job isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then now I can't get these guys to leave. Like it's, I think it's been it really shows, like remember we talked before about, a person didn't make it through, they turned the job offer down. I've got like 7 or 8 people now, retired officers, who are like, hey, I want a spot there. I'm like, all right, cool. I still have no vacancies. So that's a good problem to have.
It is.
I think it's what you say, and I was actually like gonna hop in, but you guys know exactly what we need when we're responding to the call. That is an incredible expertise that you guys have. And I heard it the other day on the radio. Every single thing that I would have thought, hey, I need this, I need that, you were already putting it out there for those officers, so they didn't even have to ask for it. It was, here you go, take this, do what you can with it. And that was super helpful. And I'm so sorry, but I wanted to say,
please.
It's the one thing with the name change is that it's very clear now that you guys are not just dealing with violent crimes. And while I know we have an example because we actually just put out a release highlighting a violent crime that you guys were able to be on and help with, and I want to talk about that in a moment. But it's also really important to understand that this also helps with missing persons.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge.
Well, that's one of the things that Todd and I regularly do now is we'll call complainants ourselves. If there's a missing person, we actually call the complainant, say, hey, do you have a recent photograph of your child, of your elderly father who has dementia? And we'll have them text it directly to us before officers are even there. So we can get it on the call, so when they're on their way in, they might spot the person.
Right.
So we try to get that information out
And that's another
quickly.
important aspect when you talk about live 911, which a little bit of what you do, but like our call takers, with how few people we have over in our call center, they don't have the time to get into that detail. And now we've got your group there that can get into that detail, which is really super cool. What example? I can think of all kinds of things that I responded to. I mean, imagine what we could have done if during the sniper investigation we had a real-time intelligence center. The last one, the Tortle serial killer guy. I guess we qualified him as a serial killer.
Two people.
Because that one right there I could think of, and the Discovery bombing. Or Discovery hostage situation, right? Having that real-time intelligence center would have been fantastic. Would really amplify what we were doing on those scenes. So what one are we going to highlight?
So you guys just happen to be watching something in Gaithersburg, and I want to clarify, you guys are not watching these cameras 24/7.
No. It's one we wouldn't have. There's
My eyes would hurt.
Yes, 3,300 county security cameras. So, we make it very clear we're not monitoring anything. If it's a high crime area, or we may have a camera up in the background, we do other stuff, but they don't have the bandwidth to be just looking. But that was Todd that was working the night of that assault.
Yeah, can you tell us about it?
Sure. So they put out a robbery and an assault over at the transit center in Gaithersburg. When that call came in, the victim of that crime had been seriously assaulted, unable at the moment to give a description or exactly tell detectives or officers on the scene.
Really quick, just interrupt you. Were you hearing this on the radio?
Yes.
As this coming out? Okay, so
Yes.
you're listening to the radio while you're
Listening
in
to
the Arctic.
So immediately, like Scott and I always do, we'll check the cameras at that location. When the call went out, we didn't have a description, an exact description of the suspects. Not the victim, because he was unable to provide one at the time. Officers were able to get one from a witness that had fled the scene. They did a great job in stopping 2 individuals across the street at a shopping center. A few minutes later, like I said, we always do, we pulled up the cameras. We were able to get pictures of the 2 suspects and get those out to the officers that had the subject stopped. That way we could positively identify them as being the persons responsible for the crime. In addition to that, we didn't know if we were dealing with an assault. We didn't know if we were dealing with a robbery. So we pull the video, we go back in time, historical information. We get that and we see that it's a robbery. Not only was the subject seriously assaulted, but while he was incapacitated, they went through his pockets, took personal items from him before they fled the scene. So we get that video, we get that out to the officers on the scene, to the investigators, and that way we know what the proper charges are against the subjects that were in custody.
And this is without the victim even being able to say what happened. This is
Correct.
all you guys being able to look in those cameras and see what happened to him.
Correct.
Very cool. So
And it was one of the most gruesome, we saw the video,
It
it
was
was one of the most gruesome assaults
yeah,
I've ever seen.
I read it and
Yeah.
it sounded terrible.
The video is brutal.
It's
Yeah.
bad.
I read it. I was like, oh my! But then the exciting thing was reading what RTIC did. So that was
Yeah.
very cool. So a lot of success stories. Where are we going?
Right, so.
What's next for RTIC? We got a name change.
Right, we had the name change, and I
Got a
think,
name change.
and really, Cass alluded to it. The name change, it was about 2 things. It's about one, we were the only agency around using this VCIC moniker, and I think, there's now a real-time crime center association with 200 members. Pretty much, I'd say it's like a 60-40 split in the country between a real-time crime center and real-time intelligence center. And what we wanted was officers to know, and we went with real-time intelligence over crime because we do help with missing persons. We do help with, crowd management at like large events. Just keeping an eye on like what crowd sizes look like. We're more than just crime. So I think this new name really lets everyone know
Solidifies
this is what they're here for, right? They're not just here for violent crime. We help with burglaries, we help with auto thefts, theft from auto. We help with the gold bar fraud schemes, helping with situational awareness on those things. In terms of what's next, I have a vision of where I'd like to see things go. Of course, we're going to support the county executive's budget, and then part of that comes with finances. Right now with 2 people, it's hard to get the coverage that we want in terms of hours and manpower. For a while, Scott and Todd were working together 40 hours a week. That was great, but it left us uncovered for 3 days. So they've kind of split some things up, and I've tried to be as flexible as possible with them to get hours that work for them, because as long as they're working, it helps us, right? It's not like we're neglecting other times of the day. We're getting benefit whenever they work. So now they're actually been working 7 days a week with an overlap day.
You're absolutely unretired.
Right. Well, it's not even close to being retired. But the trade-off is now they're monitoring 6 radio channels. And that's a lot of work. And I go up there probably once or twice a week, and it is like air traffic control in there. I gotta wait 20 minutes to talk to them because they're like, all right, I'm working on this and I'm working on that. I'll get to you in 20 minutes. They're busier than they ever were as cops, at least in the last 20 years. So I think staffing is critical. I'd love to see us build. The thing we talked about on the phone was the awesome but daunting thing about MoCo Connect and Fusus is it's never going to end, right? It's not like you're launching a new report writing system or a new body camera system because eventually you're going to hit critical mass and then you're done. There's always going to be another partner to look for, right? We're having talks with the school system. We're having talks with the Department of Transportation. But I can see in the future, like Purple Line, right? Those Purple Line stations are going to have coverage. We've been talking to a bunch of different developers, but we haven't had the opportunity to do outreach at individual businesses yet.
Yeah.
We've been talking to the associations, but the 7-Elevens and the 612s and those kind of businesses, those are still around, right? The 612s? Yeah.
612.
Yeah, there was the one on New Hampshire Avenue. There was.
one in Germantown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
So, those places.
Your Gunners
are-
branch.
And then
Is
you
that a
see.
convenience store?
Yeah, it's like a 612. Yeah.
You know what I miss? Montgomery Donuts.
That was wicked. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, there's always going to be that other partner. I mean, I would love to be at a point where we have the bandwidth to actually look at burglary reports and call up individual places after a burglary and offer
Yeah.
resources from MoCo Connect, right?
Right.
Like, there was a burglary recently at a jewelry store where the owner was able to get on their feed and give us information. And that was helpful, but there's going to be a delay, right?
Yes.
So the daunting thing is it's never going to end. There's always going to be another partner, another innovation, another grant program to tap into. It's in my view, it should always be voluntary, but we still want people to know about it. If
Yeah.
you want to be a part of it, we want you to have the way to be a part of it. And Al and I together have met with how many different businesses just in this last month.
Now, if somebody wants to be a part of it, can they go on
Yep, so they can always
MoCoConnect.org?
MoCoConnect.org has a bunch of information. They can email RTIC at montgomerycountymd.gov. They can get a hold of me personally at my email. We've given information to countless people. If after we give them information, they're like, I'm not really cool with this, that's fine, all good.
Yeah.
So basically what you're saying is Al has a bunch more work to do.
He does.
Always.
And your wife, where is she now?
Special investigations.
Okay, very cool. So when she's annoyed because you missed date night, it's because
I
you're...
am told to put the computer away often.
Okay, well good, she's smarter than all of us. Good. So you have a lot of work to do. So, well, I will say well, first of all, how we managed to fit everyone on the couch, fantastic.
There's been a couple times when I have had to keep myself from laughing because I don't think that we could have fit 3 bigger guys on the couch.
You're like the Hercules car that I sent around on election day. But I will say, the things that you all are doing is really cool. I think what we'd love to do is have you guys back as we get some more success stories, as we grow the program. We can talk about how you, again, I'm going to stick with my original thought that the Real-Time Intelligence Center came out of 24.
Great show.
And you've never seen it. You already said you never saw it.
He's sold on it now.
Now you're sold on it. Now you got to go watch it. Between watching Yellowstone, oh wait, you guys aren't retired. I was going to say, if you're retired, you can watch all this stuff. You're not retired. You're busy working upstairs in a little conference room. And we're working on that. We're working on a lot of stuff. But anyway, this is a good call having them in here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys for what you're doing. As I said, I've heard you, and now I am really, key to listening for you guys to hop on and just really see what it is, how that extra eye backup that you're doing for officers out on the road. Thank you for doing that. Thanks for coming back from retirement. We appreciate that. So, and thank you for being here with us. Stay safe and stay connected.